We've talked about the guards, we've talked about the wings, and now today we are going to be talking about the centers in the 2025 NBA draft, about some of the fits, the players that we like, players we're not as high on. Hint, there isn't many of those. Fantasy centers, fantasy rookies, no, rookie centers, that's the combination of the three words I was looking for, tend to be better than rookie wings or rookie guards in fantasy basketball. So if you're interested in more like how does this impact my redraft league, this episode should be a little bit more helpful than the last two. There are still going to be some good rookies that are more perimeter players, but for the most part, it's the bigs because they have less responsibility for the most part, in the sense that, I guess on the offensive end, it's a lot of times, unless they're a more dynamic player, it's easy looks at the rim. It's rebound in general. It's clean up, block some shots. I think easy makes it sound bad, but I think it's easier for them to have statistical success than it is for guards. It takes them less time to figure things out because center is still one of the harder positions to play. I would say it's like point guard, center, and then everything else in between. No need to get into that rant or that topic. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the centers today. There is a lot more to talk about, so I think it'll be a little less on each of them, and then we'll fly through it. And I say centers, it's bigs because there's a couple players that some of them I probably just ended up talking about last episode, but there are a few players that are probably more power forwards. They're not centers, but they're bigs. They're post players. They're not perimeter players or wings. If you're watching this, I'll stop doing the bunny ears, air quotes. Before we get into talking about these players, I just want to remind you guys that BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball season in full swing and football season around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news and scores, and even live in-game betting. From the MLB to the UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, you can head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino, and then head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's talk about these rookie centers. The first one we're going to be talking about is the player that I have ranked highest in my Dynasty rookie rankings, and a lot of it has to do with situation more so than individual talent, because I had Derik Queen pre-draft as my third favorite center, but in my Dynasty rankings, I had to put him 7. Now I have 3 centers, 7, 8, 9, and they're pretty comparable. I just have to give a slight edge to Derik Queen, and it's because of the situation, but at the same time, the fit isn't phenomenal with the Pelicans from a basketball standpoint. So just talking about what he did last season as a freshman: 16.5 points, 9 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.1 blocks. 76.6% from the free throw line, high field goal percentage, didn't hit a ton of threes. So why do I like Derik Queen? Well, one, I think he's a better passer than 2 assists per game. Strong on the glass, can score the ball, got some defensive stats, not anticipating him, like, I guess, being like a dominant source of them, but was able to get some in college. But we also have to think a little bit more about what the Pelicans did to get him. They traded, and we've talked about this a couple of times now, so I'm not going to really harp on it a ton, but they traded up from 23 to 13 to make sure to get this guy. They gave up an unprotected 2026 first-round pick that is the more favorable of their pick and the Bucks pick. So now the Hawks basically, they just need, instead of just needing one team to suck, they can root for 2 separate teams. They need one of 2 teams to be just awful next year to get a lottery pick. And those 2 teams are the Pelicans, who I genuinely believe will be better this upcoming season, but I thought they were going to be better this past season, and they had the 4th worst record in the NBA. Now, they had their own pick, so maybe that factored in. They don't have their own pick, so probably aren't going to tank quite as hard if things go bad. There's no reason for them to. And then the other team is the Bucks, who have Giannis, and Damian Lillard's hurt. Gary Trent Jr., Brook Lopez could walk in free agency. Like, not a very good team around Giannis, And then there's the reports that Giannis was keeping an eye on what they did in the draft and in free agency to decide whether or not, he could potentially still ask out. Teams knowing that there's even a slight chance that Giannis asks out is going to make them blow up the Bucks phones to try and get Giannis. And the Bucks gave up that first-round pick in a class that's highlighted by Cam Boozer, AJ DeBonsa, and Darren Peterson, and then also has a bunch of other really talented players. So even if that pick ends up being just outside the lottery or like barely a lottery pick, like that still could be a really good player to trade up and get Derik Queen. So clearly there's a lot to value there. They think of him higher than maybe some other teams did. And this isn't to say is like, we liked Derik Queen before the draft, but he did fall to pick 13, which was a little bit further than maybe we were expecting him to. But it wasn't out of the realm of possibilities. But the Pelicans said, oh, we like this guy enough to give up that plus pick 23 just to move up 10 spots to get him. Now, it was more than just to move up 10 spots. It was to be able to get this specific player. So there's a commitment there to make this work. Right now, it's questionable how well the defense will work with him and Zion Williamson as the 4 and the 5. But the offense could be fun. The difference between what Derik Queen and Yves Missi are is Derik Queen shot 1 3-pointer per game last year and made 0.2 per game. She was a 20% three-point shooter. Almost a 77% free throw shooter. So you look at that and say, okay, pretty good free throw shooter. So he has some shooting touch and could potentially be a decent three-point shooter. But we don't need him to be shooting 4 or 5 threes per game and giving us, 1.5 to 2 threes per game in fantasy. What we need is him to be able to stand out beyond the arc and have teams not be able to just totally sag off of him, to give Zion room in the paint to operate, Jordan Poole space to operate, there to be room in the paint. Like, it makes sense on offense. And Derik Queen is not a good shooter. I don't even want to say he's a bad shooter. He's a low volume shooter, but he's not a non-shooter, which is what Yves Missi is. So there would be more space for Zion to operate, even if Derik Queen isn't, a knockdown shooter. If he stands out beyond the 3-point line, you can't just have whoever's guarding him sit in the paint the same way you would with Yves Missi. Because you could put the ball in Derik Queen's hands, run it's not inverse pick and rolls. It's just like 4 or 5 pick and rolls, like big man pick and rolls with him and Zion. And he can operate like that. Zion can operate like that. There's a lot of creative things they'll be able to do offensively. Defense, no idea. No idea how it's going to work. As everyone probably knows, as a Hawks fan, I will be actively rooting against this to have this team be as bad as possible so that pick can be better. But from like an analysis and analyst standpoint, an unbiased standpoint, like, I get the vision offensively. I don't see it defensively. And yeah, that's just what it is. And maybe Yves Missi, I don't know. But long-term, there's an investment to make Derik Queen work. Didn't test well athletically at the combine, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be him and Zion for the next 7 years. Like, it could be 1 to 2 more seasons of Zion, and if things aren't working great, sorry. Like, he's had chances since he was drafted in 2019. Hasn't played in a playoff game yet. I think if they don't make it to the playoffs this year, if Zion doesn't play any playoff game this year, they have to trade him. It would be interesting to not, like, I don't know. Don't need to get into a Zion rant because this was going to be a centers episode, but higher on Derik Queen in the sense that, and so I have him 7th in my dynasty rankings because there's a lot to like statistically from his game. The Pelicans are committed to making this thing work, and I see the vision where it can be interesting offensively as a rookie. Definitely has some defensive questions, but a fun fantasy talent. Number 8 on my board is Khaman Maluach, who was drafted 10th to the Suns 2 minutes after they traded for Mark Williams, which was really freaking annoying, but I'm not too threatened by Mark Williams, who's a really good offensive big. So is Maluach. I think Maluach would probably be a better defender, maybe not immediately but I think he will be because Mark Williams isn't a great defensive center. Let's see. Maluach played 21 minutes per game last season, averaged 8.6 points, 6.6 rebounds, 1.3 blocks. Shot 76.6% from the free throw line. That's intriguing. That's the exact same percentage as what we just talked about with Derik Queen. 71.2% from the floor. That'll play. That'll do. Almost 7'7" wingspan, 9'6" standing reach. He's a really gifted player, and it's not just some like raw upside big. Like there's a lot to like right now. Does the 3-point shot develop? Who knows? Who cares? Like would make him just that much better, but I still think he can be really good even without it. I think he's got to be the best defensive big they've had in a while, or will be the best defensive big they've had in a while. The shot blocking should be pretty strong. We'll see how much he plays, like exactly what that minute split looks like. But I think there's definitely a lot to like from him long term. I think eventually he becomes better than Mark Williams or like outplays him. Just, yeah. Really liked him long term. The short term, it stinks the sense that it seemed like the Suns were going to draft a center there and that player was going to be an immediate starter. Now, probably more of a reserve role early on, but could be in a minute split and could be just take over and just be better than Mark Williams within a year or two. So, yeah, I'm not scared off by them trading for Mark Williams. We'll see how things look in summer league and preseason and training camp. Keep an eye on storylines and such. But right now, like, I don't think there's much of a difference between Maluach and Queen as far as fantasy, like who you should take first. I have Queen ranked a touch higher. I feel a little bit better about him playing more early on and being a starter early on. Not guaranteeing for either, but I feel a little bit better about Queen's chances of beating out Misi than Maluach's chances of beating out Mark Williams because I think Mark Williams is better than Misi. But still optimistic that within 2 years, I mean, we also got to look, he's still 18. He'll turn 19 soon. He could be the starter by the time he turns 21 or 22. Still a ton to like there. The other center that I have ranked 9th is Thomas Sorber, who got drafted by the Thunder 15th overall, because of course he did. The Thunder, what a phenomenal pick by them. Sorber was my number one center before this draft. 6'10", 6'10" and a half with shoes on, 7'6" wingspan. Very, very nice. Averaged 14.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 2 blocks, 1.5 steals, high field goal percentage, decent free throw percentage at 72.4%. Not ideal, but not bad. Didn't shoot a ton of they shot 1.5 threes per game. Low percentage. Not expecting him to be much of a 3-point shooter in the NBA, but I think he's got enough shooting touch maybe from the mid-range to space his game out a tad, and then he can continue to work on that. And I think the shooting touch is there, that he does have upside to be a 3-point shooter, but I'm not relying on that. I'm not expecting it, not looking for it. It's everything else. 53.2% field goal percentage last season. Decent scoring option, but we're not expecting him to give us a ton of points. Good rebounder because of the 7'6" wingspan. Big body down low despite being undersized. He's a strong player. Pretty good passer for a big. The defensive stats were great. 1.5 steals and 2 blocks in 31 minutes per game. So the vision here is that he's not going to play much at all this year. He may you see him in blowouts or get some minutes here and there. Not going to play enough that we're going to be starting him in fantasy this year, barring some injuries. Isaiah Hartenstein it's under contract for one more season and then has a team option for the year after. So at the end of this next season, they'll be able to say, okay, Thomas Sorber, how much have you progressed? Oh, you've progressed some, but we're still trying to win championships. We don't really trust you in a 25-minute per game role. You're 20 years old. We'll keep Hartenstein around one more season. Okay, maybe that happens. End of the next season, same thing. Do we want to re-sign Hartenstein? Do we want to let him walk and let Sorber step into his role? It could be at the end of this season that they say, oh, wow, you've really progressed, Thomas Sorber. We think you can play the 28-minute per game role that Isaiah Hartenstein played this year. Maybe it's a lighter version of that, and it's closer to 22, 23 minutes per game, and they rely on Jalen Williams a little bit more, or just have Chet Holmgren, who's probably a little stronger, not saying he like bulked up or anything, but like he's a little stronger at that point. Maybe they rely on him for a few extra minutes. Okay, like Isaiah Hartenstein, we're okay letting you walk at this point. Thomas Sorber has really progressed, and we're ready to have him be a part-time starter. That's the vision here. So short term, there's no reason to draft him in a redraft league. Potentially not the year after either. But by the time he's 21, 22, dude could be a fantasy stud, which is why I'm willing to take him in the top 10 and be a little patient and wait on him to eventually carve out that role. And I'm okay waiting because I think the upside there is tremendous. Next player that we'll talk about is my highest ranked second round pick, and that's Ryan Kalkbrenner. 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan. I have him at 15. Now, second round picks, kind of hard to sometimes put that early on. Went 34th to Charlotte. 23 years old isn't ideal for a dynasty rookie because obviously you're looking for younger players where you can, but this is the ideal pick for a team that is in win now mode. He's 7'1" with no shoes, 7'2 plus with shoes. Averaged 19.2 points, 8.7 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 2.7 blocks per game last season. 65.3% field goal percentage is phenomenal. Almost took 2 threes per game, shot 34.4%. So maybe we'll shoot a 3 here and there. Doesn't need to shoot a ton, but not a complete non-shooter. Here's what we like about him. He's 23, so he's NBA, like in theory, is NBA ready. Like he's not a 19-year-old, he's not a 20-year-old that you're trying to get caught up to the game. Like he was a dominant player at the college level that you draft because you're going to say, yes, we want him to contribute day one. Charlotte they made 2 picks in the first round, didn't take a center. They traded away Mark Williams. Kalkbrenner's competition for minutes in year one is going to be Musa Diabate and Yusuf Nurkic. And I've been meaning to double check this, that Nurk is still under contract. Let me just quickly pull up this Spotrac page. Nurkic has 1 more season on his contract, and then Diabate, I believe, gotten a full contract during this past season, so after starting out on a 2-way. Diabate is a little bit more of an undersized big and had to play minutes last year, and Mark Williams and Nick Richards were sidelined, who, by the way, now both in Phoenix. So, and then they shouldn't be tied to Yusuf Nurkic to the point where they're like, yeah, this guy's start, because he's not a great defender. Kalkbrenner is like the best shot blocker they have on their team right now. Just going to walk into the league and say, yep, I'm the best shot blocker on this team. And LaMelo Ball's not a great defender. Knipple is not like a liability or anything, but he's not like a standout defender. You're not drafting him for his defense. So having a shot blocker down there is helpful, especially a 7'2" one with a 7'6" wingspan. So Kalkbrenner should be able to provide high field goal percentage, a good bit of rebounds. Say he plays, like they're not set on any of those centers being the guy. Kalkbrenner plays 24, 26 minutes per game. He can get 2 blocks. He can get 8 rebounds, 9, 10 points, high field goal percentage. Like he's going to be really good for a fantasy rookie. Now, the reason that he's not higher, like in a redraft league, I think he at this point could be my second rookie off the board behind Cooper Flagg. We'll probably get into more of that conversation in a couple months, but he's just so set up to have a really good rookie year. Now, what could happen is he has a really good rookie season or a really productive rookie season, but they're not tied to this guy to the point where they say, yeah, we're not drafting a center next year because we have our guy. Like that, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be like productive, but probably not that good where they have like their center of the future. So they could draft a center next season, and then all of a sudden all this fantasy gold goes away. So a lot to like from him. this season. Not super optimistic about the future, which is why I have him 15th, not higher. But I think he's set up to have a good enough rookie year that you don't let him go much past that. And then, of course, there is the scenario where they don't find another center to add, and he does get to start another season. So there's a good bit to like in the short term. Not super interested if I'm in the middle of a rebuild in like getting this guy. Now you could still draft him to trade him and get better value when he plays really well. If you want to go that route, but if you're looking to just go like draft really young and wait on players to develop in the middle of a rebuild, probably not super interested in him. But if, say, your team is just lost in the championship or just won a championship, or you advance far in the playoffs and you're looking to reload with another big, might be worth trading up for this guy. Next center to talk about is, let me see if I can find where he is on Data Baller. It's Danny Wolf, who, there we go, found him, who the Nets drafted 27th overall, 6'11" big, one of the better passers in this class. And I think we might have to pick up the pace here with these next few guys, but a really strong passer, is very dynamic in comparison to the bigs they have, such as like a Nick Claxton or Noah Clowney or Day'Ron Sharpe. Like Danny Wolf can do a lot more with the ball in his hands and is one of the better passers in the entire draft. So interested to see exactly how they use him. I have him ranked 16th in my dynasty rankings because I think the assists are really intriguing for a center, and I think he'll get a lot of opportunity the next couple of seasons with the Nets. Making use him in a number of different ways, like I said, because he's pretty dynamic. I think he can shoot better than what he showed in college, but he was also a 59.4% free throw shooter, which was yikes. But I think he's a better shooter than that. We'll see exactly. Maybe this should be more of an alarming thing, is that, yeah, he hit some tough shots, but at the same time, he was a really bad free throw shooter. Not say, like, there are cases of players being good three-point shooters and bad free throw shooters, but more often than not, free throw percentage is a good way to show how effective of a shooter a player will be in the pros. Next player that we're going to talk about, just got to find where he is. Oh, here he is. Don't have a ton of information from him on Data Baller, but it's Jan Berenjay, who Timberwolves drafted. He'll sit behind Rudy Gobert and learn how to be Rudy Gobert for a few seasons. And then the idea would be that as Rudy Gobert gets older and retires, they have a new Rudy Gobert in Jan Berenjay. That's phenomenal for fantasy basketball. Don't know exactly how that translates. Don't know exactly how that works out, but that's the idea for them. If you believe in them and believe in their strategy, would be a good player to pick. I have him 21st in my dynasty rankings. Next player, Young Hansen. Not going to, they don't have a ton of him on Data Baller as well. Not going to spend a ton of time here because I've been ranting on him a few times. Like the talent, similar to like Derik Queen, like even though Portland traded back, not up to get him, they staked their reputation to take a guy that most people had going in the second round to take him in the first round. I think that if it works, like there's a talent here for it to work out. Really good passer, especially for a big, can block shots, can rebound, stuff that works well in fantasy basketball. Don't know how it fits with Donovan Clingan in the mix as well. Like, did you take a guy at 16 overall with the idea that he was going to be in a minute split? Maybe, but also at the same time, like you could have taken someone else and then maybe trade back up for him. But if they're that much of a believer in him that they just had to have him there, makes me a little bit more of a believer in him. I have him at 23 in my rankings. Yeah. Really interested to see how Summer League goes for him. I think he's one of the players to watch this summer, because if he looks really good, then all of a sudden everyone's going to be, oh, okay, like this makes sense. Yeah, we were just wrong about him pre-draft. If he really struggles, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, see, this was a dumb pick by Portland. The important thing is to not overreact either way. maybe he really does struggle in summer league, and then he falls down draft boards, and you're able to get him at a discount. A guy that went just outside the lottery. Do I think he was a lottery talent? No. I can't remember if I had him was like a late first, early second round player in my opinion. So I don't know. We'll see. Still just such a surprising pick. Next player we'll talk about who the Hawks got at 23 after they traded down. That was Asa Newell. Let's see. Oh, where is he on this? I'm trying to find him on Data Baller. Whoa, did they have him this low? Okay, maybe let me pause this. All right, I was blind. Found Asa Newell now. He is 13th on their rankings, which I don't know why I couldn't find that. That was a bad miss by me. But I have him 25th in my dynasty rankings now that he's with the Hawks. I like him as a talent. I think he's a talented basketball player and is going to fit really well with the Hawks. Frankly, I think lefty John Collins is a pretty interesting comparison. I think he's a better shooter right now than John Collins was coming into the league. He's also a freshman. John Collins was a sophomore. Maybe not quite as explosive of a dunker as John Collins is/was, but that same mold of like a more traditional power forward that can finish at the rim and moves pretty well. But I think Asa Newell has more shooting touch right now. I think he's got a number of skills across the board that make him like he's just going to be a good basketball player. But the fantasy contributions I'm a little bit more pessimistic about. Specifically is what is his role going to be? Because I don't think he's a center, even in the modern NBA. I think he can be a power forward 100%. He can be a good scoring option. I don't know if he'll, unless he just really, really develops, if he'll be like a high volume scorer with the Hawks, but a nice reserve behind Jalen Johnson that can probably spend some time at the 5 in a smaller lineup. That's intriguing. And next to Jalen Johnson at the 5 also works because Jalen Johnson's a good rebounder. So how well can he space the floor? Can he get stronger or better defensively? And then is he able to do it? Maybe not a ton with the ball in his hands, but enough with the ball in his hands that he's not just he just needs to be entirely set up. Like when John Collins was at his best, he wasn't creating his own shot often, but you could feed it to him in the post, like honestly, like basically in the dunker spot, like around there, like in the short corner. That's the word I'm trying to use, where he would face up, cash mid range every time, like just a little bit off the low block, and that was like a shot he could turn to. And I think Asa Newell has different things that he can do to score, but how dynamic can he be offensively? How good of a shooter can he become? He shot 74.8% from the free throw line, 29.2% from beyond the arc. I think it progressed as the season went on, but not great marks there. But how effective can he be offensively outside of just finishing plays? Because it's the NBA. Like they're not going to feed him on the low block and just have him like shoot post hooks. Like you see that in college basketball. You don't see that in the NBA. Can he be like just a mid-range shooter? Can he hit threes? How good can he be defensively? Can he get stronger and better defensively to the point where he's maybe a little undersized, but you can run him at the 5 for longer stretches and have that work? Or is it just like a high energy forward? And this is going to work out well for the Hawks. I think he's a good pick for them and he's going to help them win basketball games, but I'm not as optimistic about the fantasy outlook for him. That's why I have him ranked 25th on my board. A couple of other centers just to hit on quickly. The Celtics drafted Amari Williams. The reports were that, or like the recent reports that I've seen, and again, this is a pre-recorded episode, stuff will have happened in free agency. It'll change things. Al Horford and Luke Kornet are unrestricted free agents. There was talks of the Celtics bringing both back and that they're interested in bringing both back, but there's also the chance that they don't come back. Amari Williams would play a ton of minutes if they don't, or if one of them doesn't. Heck, even if both of them come back, there's still a scenario in which Amari Williams plays a lot. So he also was a good passer at Kentucky. a good bit to like in fantasy. Ideally, if you're doing a fantasy draft or rookie draft, wait until after Summer League. That way, a lot of this free agency stuff can happen, because if you're drafting Amari Williams now, I have him 34th right now, with the sense that Luke Cornett and Al Horford are unrestricted free agents. But if both of them sign back, I probably have to bump him down my rankings. If one of them signs back, then I probably leave him there. But if neither of them sign back, I might even bump him up a little bit more. We'll see who Boston has at center. Maxime Reynaud fell to the Kings. I would have been much higher on him if he was drafted much earlier, but that kind of stinks. I thought he should have gone much earlier. Still an intriguing spot and an intriguing talent. So I didn't want to drop him much past there. And then Yannick Conan Niederhauser, last pick of the first round, behind Ivica Zubac. Fun rim runner. Can dunk the ball off lobs, block shots, Jackson Hayes-esque fantasy game. And then a couple of the other centers, Janai Broom went to the 76ers. I see a path for minutes if Joel Embiid continues to have injury issues, but not super optimistic enough to bump him up higher. Vlad Golden, undrafted, two-way to Miami. They pretty much have center figured out with Bam and Khalil Ware, but they don't have a ton of center depth. So that's an intriguing pickup there. Yeah, those are the centers I want to talk about that I think at least can be mentioned for dynasty managers. They're the bigs, not the centers, because Asa Newell isn't a center. But hopefully he'll be able to develop to the point where he can play center. But that's going to do it for this episode and this mini series of pre-recorded episodes talking about rookies in different categories. Next episode I'll be back to record it, not live, but like day of. So a better idea of what has happened in free agency, can recap some of those moves that have happened. Maybe more trades will have happened, to give us a better understanding of what the NBA is going to look like next season and how we should approach that from a dynasty perspective. Then we'll get into some like pre-summer league stuff, some summer league stuff, some post-summer league stuff, just all about that and the way these rookies look, before we eventually get into mock draft season or draft startup season for dynasty leagues, and then mock draft season for redraft leagues, which we will spend time on just because people are interested in that thing. But during the season, this will stick to being a dynasty podcast, where, of course, redraft takeaways will be made, or like single season takeaways will be made. But for the most part, in season, the goal is to keep this to be a dynasty basketball podcast. So we'll have that all season long. Looking forward to that. Don't know why I gave the whole layout for what everything else is going to look like, but I can't stop talking. I'm going to wrap this up. Like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at NoRuben22, and I will see you guys next time.